Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going back and speaking with Greg Dickerson. We did this last Thursday after that initial jobless claims of 6.6. That was revised up to 6.9, leaving this week to once again report 6.66. And Greg reached out and says, you know what, some good news, bad news. Let's get on the call and talk about it. So how you doing, Greg?
Good, good. How about you, Michael?
I'm doing all right. I look at this as, we're over the peak, right? Hopefully 6.9 is the peak. Now each week gets a little bit better, which sounds horrible to say when there's still 6.6 million people starting, but you've got to look for good news somewhere. So what are you thinking?
Yeah. It's interesting. So here's the good news. The fact that you have that many applications means there's money on the way, right? So that's the good news. There's money on the way, which is going to funnel back into the economy one way or the other through food, other purchases, things like that. So that's the good news. The bad news is I still think it's low because what I'm seeing in the news, a lot of people can't even get through to apply. So I think there's still a big backlog that just weren't even able to apply yet, including self-employed who are now included and able to apply for unemployment. So I think we might see, I thought we'd see closer to 10 million, but I feel like there's a backlog in there of 3 or 4, maybe 5 million that weren't even able to get through the system. So that's the bad news. I think there's still a lot more to come, but the good news is that means money's on the way. And, when you look at the benefit, I mean, for somebody who's making 10, 15 bucks an hour, it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it a couple of times. There will be tenants that I have in some of my apartments that will make more money for the next 4 months being unemployed than they did working.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the good news. There's money coming. There's stuff on the way. The real question is, and still remains to be seen is, like the other news right behind it was, Mnuchin came out and said, hey, we've got another 2.5 trillion or whatever it was, that we're throwing at the economy, going into small business, going into, this, that, and the other. They've included larger companies, to be able to get loans in addition to the the payment protection plan. So at one point, if you did that, you couldn't do the other. Now you can do both, so there's a lot of support coming, and, they've done an incredible amount in a week. Maybe a few businesses have actually, I think, had their applications processed. The money still hasn't flowed yet to anybody anywhere on any level, but it's coming.
Yeah.
So that's the good news, is that now we're starting to hear conversations about getting to the other side of this, opening up parts of the economy here and there, and what that's going to look like, starting to move into, end of May into June and getting into the fall of maybe even going back to school. So we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that are, again, getting over the peak's important, because then you can let momentum, right, help you each week. And I think we're there. And again, what the Fed and the Treasury announced today, that that 2.2 trillion extra or whatever is coming, it's the real deal. I'm starting to see, the little light that I saw last week when we talked, it's bigger today. It's brighter today. Because there's so much money coming. There will actually be businesses started, which always happens in a capitalistic society, right? But now even more people will be going, you know what, I should start a business. I can get a really low rate on that strip mall space. And, unfortunately, there will be lots of businesses that close, but we're going to quickly kind of fill them up. But the outcome of this is now, without question, inflation. Without question. We're going to have wage inflation, because once retail kind of slowly opens up, they're going to go back and try to get their employees. Their employees are going to have options. And I don't see how inflation isn't a real problem in 3 to 5 years. But I don't know. Have you even had time to think about how inflation kind of ripples through all this?
Yeah, we kind of touched on it last week, and I saw somebody commented on the video and said, hey, how is the dollar not going to get devalued with all this? Why is it going to maintain its value? And, the dollar is the reserve currency of the world. The United States, you got to remember, we are the largest GDP in the world. We are the largest consumer, the largest producer, maybe not producer. We have the largest GDP. We're the largest consumer. Everybody wants to be in the United States. They want our business. They want our dollar. They want our treasuries. They want our bonds. So that is an interesting contemplation. And if you look what happened back in, 2009-10 with all of the quantitative easing that was done after that, we didn't see the dollar lose its value. We didn't see hyperinflation.
True.
What it did was it spurred the economy, which created, pressure on jobs and things like that. So we've seen some, wage inflation. We've seen, construction costs go up, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to continue to see that on the other side of this. Like you said, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of businesses that aren't going to make it through.
Mm-hmm.
But for those people, shut it down, walk away, reopen later when you can borrow the money. Because you can probably walk back into where you were, or you can walk into another space and take it over for little to nothing. Everybody's going to have a force majeure clause, pandemic clause in their lease now, to where if this happens again, boom, shut down, all bets are off, you don't pay rent. And you're not obligated to that lease. So there's going to be a lot of trickle through. The good news is that even if there's a lot of businesses that can't open, all that labor is needed everywhere else that did stay. So they're going to be able to go back to work. You've got unemployment for those who aren't. And then as things start to trickle back the next 12 to 18 months, looking into 2022, because we're already just about halfway through 2020, believe it or not. I mean, it's
crazy.
May, it's April. May will be here before you know it. So the end of this year, we're going to just be getting back open. Then going into next year, 2021, we're going to be back in the ramp up where we got to get all these businesses, and we got to figure out what's the retail going to look like? What does the hospitality landscape look like? What are we actually going back and doing? If we reopen schools and businesses and things like that in the fall, that's one thing. But what about football and basketball and professional sports, college? Are we be doing that? Conferences, are they going to let us gather in crowds, and what size are those crowds? So we still have a lot of unknowns in terms of how back, but I think everybody's starting to say, they're going to get these doors open to a degree as soon as possible, because we just can't keep, and the Fed seems to be unlimited, but I'm sure they're thinking, we got to stop this at some point.
They've launched bazookas, nuclear weapons, whatever they want. This thing that came out today, they're all in. And actually, again, because I invested through the '08 crash, the Fed was slow. I'll even say really slow in '08. That's why the negative feedback loop kept building on itself. And then when TARP came out, or it was finally passed the second time, that was kind of the, the flag in the ground that says no more. It's, what is it? 3 weeks? They're just,
they single-handedly took the economy down last time. And it was the Fed's policy of raising interest rates that caused the problem,
5.5,
caused the crash. Right. And then they didn't pull back quick enough. And then they didn't rescue the housing market with mortgage relief to the borrowers. They should have done back then what they're doing right now to you and me and everybody else who had the loans that they couldn't work out or couldn't refinance or whatever, and just change the loans. So there was no mortgage forbearance. There was nothing. Nobody was working out, modifying, forbearing. Remember, loan mods didn't even come out until 2000, probably
10.
Late 10, early 11. So it was a year into the whole thing before they even decided, maybe we should work out some of these loans. By then, most everybody had already lost their house.
Oh, it was over. The feedback loop was 2 or 3 rotations in. It was the momentum was just too big.
And what's cool is, Steve Mnuchin's Goldman Sachs. Well, Neil Kashkari worked for Steven Mnuchin at Goldman Sachs. And, Neil came in as the Treasury Secretary, or I can't remember what his role was, but, he was in the thick of it at Treasury underneath Paulson, when it was all going down in 2008 and 9. So now he's right in there now. So everybody knows what went wrong last time and what we need to do. So, even looking at what we've done, it sounds like these big, huge numbers, but I think we're only at about, maybe 10 to 15% of GDP right now that they're actually pumping back in.
I think it's just over 10%. And again, this is wartime footing, right? This is not unheard of.
Right.
In times of war, you do spend, you spend ahead 10%, 20% of GDP. World War II was 100% of GDP. Let's not forget, right? So this is not unheard of.
If we were in
stuff.
a war right now, you'd be spending whatever it took. You wouldn't even be thinking twice about it.
It'd be open checkbook, exactly. So another thing I'm very encouraged by, again, you got to get over the peak to start feeling better. I'm feeling better. I am. I just this thing that came out, this extra $2 trillion. I know the loans to small businesses are slower than we would all like, but it hasn't even been a week yet. Right? They were open last Friday, and most didn't even open till Monday. The money's coming, and they just
it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks for that to work through the system at best.
Because these are real loans, right? You got to qualify. You have to have a balance sheet. They're still working.
Have credit.
Yeah, you got to have credit. So yeah, it's going to be okay. I think it's just, yeah, I feel really good because again, the money's going to
Mhm.
start showing up. I'm actually feeling better about May 1st rent collection than I did just even a week ago because
Yeah.
these checks should be hitting. Unemployment, the kicker will be hitting. So yeah, we're
And
going
I haven't heard
and we'll
any
start
bad
opening.
stories so far.
Mm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Everybody I've talked to, they all seem to be at 80 to 90%,
Yeah.
of collection so far. I haven't heard of anybody having any real serious problems. Now, that's in residential. The commercial,
Yeah.
that's a whole different ballgame.
Retail. Ooh.
So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Retail's in trouble. I heard retail's at like 25%.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they're just shut, right? I mean, yeah, it's too
Yeah.
bad. But yeah, I'm at, just yes, I get a report at 4:30 every day. I think I'm now at 83% or
Mhm.
84%, which again, I compare it to March, which was a 99.1% collection. We're
Right.
only 2 points behind what March collection was. So I have some tenants. And again, I have C class properties, the
Hmm.
majority. So a lot of people say C class doesn't do well. Um, you know, I'm not asking for any forbearance at, north of 80% collection because
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
again,
it's, it's an interesting thing.
yeah, 2008 was worse. I mean, that's what people don't get. 2008, my economic occupancy was in the 70s,
Hmm.
because of turns and people. It was just rougher. This is so fast and so deep, and so much help is coming. I'm
Yeah.
not nearly as nervous.
No, no, that makes a big difference. That tells everybody, look, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We can get to the other side. We may have another month or two to go of this, shutdown situation. But I like Bill Gates, right? I mean, that dude is, he's one of the best minds in the world,
Yeah,
and he's got a really unbiased view of this whole situation, and you know, the people that he's talking to and the things they're looking at. So, look, number one, you need a vaccine, right? You're
yeah,
you're not going
that's
to
the end
end
all.
this
It's
in
like
any
polio.
capacity.
Yep.
Right. You need a vaccine, but he can see the country starting to get open back up again in mid to end of May, to some degree, starting to go back to school in the
Yep.
fall,
Definitely.
limiting maybe some of those gatherings and events that we're allowed to do. And of course, all that depends on what's going on because we're watching these other countries that have gotten to the other side, China, Korea, to
Hmm.
see what the relapse looks like in those countries. These areas here that are kind of plateauing, when you do open up the doors, what does that look like? So there's a lot of different things there, but he's very interesting to listen to and has a very rational, unbiased viewpoint of everything, talking to, he's talking to the best in the world,
Yeah.
working really hard on, how do we get billions of doses of this thing out? That's what he's working on.
Yeah.
You guys create it, we'll get it out there.
Yeah, no, and I love where he's going, right? There's actually, I think he was interviewed on CNBC this morning for about 30 minutes. That was actually before I woke up. So I do wake
Yeah.
up early, but that was before me. So I'll be watching that later in the day, probably while I'm working out. So, um,
Yeah, I was up at 4:30 with a thunderstorm this morning and
oh no.
come back to sleep. Yeah.
Wow.
Something that's interesting. I think the housing market, mortgage market, is actually taking a bigger hit than the rental
Oh, for sure.
side. I saw a note the other day that like there was 20 or 30 percent of the homes that were behind on their mortgage asking for forbearance in the residential mortgage market.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that's going to be a problem for 2021. Because again, I think the financial education of the average American is not great. Most of them, and I actually did a video on it. I said the dark side of forbearance. And most people don't realize, they think it's free money, right? They read a headline on some newspaper or somebody's friend tells them on Facebook, they get 90 days really easy. Because again, it's call
Mm-hmm.
them, say the magic
Yeah,
word, you get 90 days, no proof.
right.
But right now, you're going to get a bill on the fourth month because the service
Mm-hmm.
providers have to pay their lenders. I mean, it's just a chain
Yeah, you
that,
got to catch it. You got to catch it back up, but then there's loan modification after that. So that's the good news. That's what we
yeah,
did not have in 2009.
we could.
Was there was
Yeah.
no forbearance and there was no loan modifications. They were like, "You're in default. We're foreclosing,"
Yeah.
and they were taking houses left and right.
Yeah.
So the good news here is anybody who's listening, yes, all you got to do is call or fill out an application. Every bank's different, and they will. Don't worry about it. You can have 3 months. You'll
Yep.
revisit that in 3 months. Then at that point, you got to pay it all off and start paying forward, or you might be able to buy another 3 months. But
Maybe.
then at the end of the 6 months, then you've got to get into that loan modification, which means that's when they talk about modifying your loan, where that can get it onto the balance of the loan. They adjust the interest rate.
Yeah.
those types of things. So that's the good news, is that that's in place. That's there. They know we do not want the housing market to go under, because if you had, and the business loss that we've had, it would be a drag.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think this is, again, the speed, the size, that people are helping. I think we're closer to the end of this than the beginning. I really do. I
Yeah.
think, I don't, now be very clear in what I said. I don't think we're going to go back. We're not going to, this is not a V-shaped recovery, right? We're not going to go all the way back, right? We are certainly going to bounce off the bottom, but it's just like a trampoline, right? You'll lose some of that momentum, that inertia as you go back the other direction. But, it's not going to be an L either, I don't think. So, so we're talking U-shaped recovery, just to kind of, follow that through. I do say, with the one thing we have to watch for is it's not a W, right? We don't go up and then come back down. So those are things I'm watching for. Any other kind of thoughts on the news of the day, Greg?
Had one little freeze up there for a few seconds.
Yeah, no worries. I was just curious, what other kind of good news, bad news did you see in the media today?
So I think it's all good. Now the bad news obviously is New York and some other countries and cities are still having record death rates and that kind of stuff, but they're seeing infection rates and hospital admissions tapering off. So they're starting to see a flattening of the curve in a lot of areas. California, Washington, by doing what y'all did so soon, you guys were 2-3 weeks ahead of us,
right?
Has really made a huge difference. So, there's still a little bit of a good and bad there, but, from an economic standpoint, from a real estate standpoint, I think we're still fine. I think multifamily might actually, this whole thing might create more of a demand in multifamily on the other side, because it is going to do so well through this. The housing market, it's hard to say. It hasn't seemed to make an impact. Stuff is still selling. Things are still going good. So I think overall, it's a lot of bad things going on out there, but the stuff that's coming makes it so good. I'm not even sure the market's gonna have another episode with all of the things that the Fed's doing, and if we can get through this, I don't know if we're even going to revisit the lows that we were at and crack through that. So it'll be interesting to see what the market actually does.
Wow, that's the first time I've heard that. The low is in a bit. By the way, we're up 25% from the low. Right, something like
that. Still
that.
Down 20 from the peak, but yes, we're off the bottoms 20%. We've been kind of hovering there. We haven't really moved off of that since the initial bounce. So if you go back and look at 2008 and 9, it kind of did that, and then bam, it went off the cliff. But now there's so much firepower coming in. I don't know if they're going to let that happen.
Yeah, I'm going to go with it's going to happen. This just feels artificial. If we were off 8 to 10% at the bottom, I might be a believer, but we went up. This is the best week since 1938. And if you go back and look at 1938, that was not what happened after that week was not good, right? It was a top. It was a topping that fell off. So when in doubt, go back and look at history. This is abnormal. We still haven't had real news from companies. Everything has been, we've withdrawn guidance. And again, Starbucks.
Yeah, you still have that shoe to drop. Yeah.
Yeah. Starbucks, 43% drop in earnings. But you got to remember, that was with only 2 bad weeks, right?
Yeah.
Most of the country didn't get hit until March 15th. And if they suffered that kind of drop, what's going to happen to them in a full quarter of this? Oh.
And unemployment. Like you said, we still have a lot of delayed applications. So, there's still another 5 or 6 or 10 million coming there over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not going back to work next week. You and I make it sound like it's over. We're done. We're on the other side. So we're not saying that. We're just saying that, man, there's so much firepower coming at this thing. It's going to ease the blow, right? Yes. So it's like the difference between boxing with 6-ounce gloves and boxing with 15-ounce gloves, right? Yeah. We got 15-ounce gloves on right now when we had the 6-ounces earlier.
Yeah, or bare knuckle brawling earlier or something. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So I do feel really good. I still think I don't believe earnings can stand up. I believe fundamentally that stocks are earnings per share times some multiple, and I haven't seen the hit. I haven't seen the collapse or compression or whatever. Yeah. So
it's coming. It's coming, and
But I'd love the bottom to be in. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I have no skin in the game. I don't have a dollar stock, so I don't care if it goes up or down. So
yeah.
But yeah,
I'm waiting for the bottom because I wanted to buy a little bit at the bottom and play again. And I'm looking at some of the stocks that I did well on last time. I'm watching Ford, man. It's like $4, right? So,
yeah,
uh, I made a
yeah. I
lot
bought
of
it
money
at
on
a
Ford.
dollar 26 or something last time.
Yeah.
I'll
I think
play
I
it.
was $1.90 I got
Yeah,
in.
I'll play it 50%. I will look at the stock market if it goes down to 15,000. The Dow
I,
15,000.
that's where I feel like it just wants to go. And I always kind of felt like you'd see that before you see 30. And
Yeah.
this is all artificial. We have to get through
Oh
more
yeah.
unemployment. We have to get through more earnings. But every time you even get close to something, the Fed comes out and says, "We got another 2 trillion."
Exactly. Well, very cool, man. I appreciate you reaching out. Anything else you want to close with before we wrap this? This is a positive call. That's how I see
Yeah, it
this
is.
call.
It is. Yeah, it's good. It's good. There's good news. There's hope. There's optimism. So just hang in there. Keep pouring into yourself. Keep looking at deals. Keep
Yep.
raising capital. Be ready.
Yeah.
And like you're doing, make those offers. Get out there. Look for owner financing. Look for
Yep.
creative financing. If it's going to be hard to borrow money right now for certain things. So just get creative. Study those aspects. And keep at it, man. It's we are going to get to the other side of this. We just don't know when, but it's
Yeah.
coming.
Very, very cool, Greg. Well, thank you very much for reaching out. This
Yep.
has been a lot of fun. Thanks, buddy.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter.